You know, sometimes even when we really try to stay informed, it just feels like, oh, like there's too much coming at us, doesn't it? It's overwhelming, like trying to hold on to smoke. So, how do we find that clarity, that sense of direction, especially when things feel so uncertain, shaky, even? Well, that's what today's deep dive is all about. We're looking into sources that offer some pretty timeless wisdom on navigating change. And the power we can find in unity will be drawing from daily astrology, the ancient I Ching, and a really quite compelling traditional story. So let's dive right in. Thinking about July 8th, 2025, the astrology points to the moon being void, of course. Now, people who follow this know it means a sort of energetic pause, but what does that actually mean for us day to day? You know, how does it affect trying to start something new when the ground feels like it's shifting?
Yeah, it's an interesting sort of cosmic signal to just pause, isn't it?
Yeah.
When the moon is void, of course, it basically means it's finished talking to the other planets in its current sign and hasn't yet moved into the next one. So often this translates into a feeling of things being a bit up in the air, or projects just don't seem to get traction. The real wisdom here is that kicking off big new things today, probably not the most productive use of energy. It's actually a really potent time for internal work,
Hmm.
for processing,
Right.
for letting the weight of whatever shifts have been happening really settle in. It's much more about becoming ready than it is about doing.
Okay. That's a key difference. So integration, preparation,
Mm.
not just pushing ahead regardless. And there's this insight linked to it that some foundations might actually turn out to be stronger than we thought, while others, well, maybe they were always meant to crumble.
Exactly. That discernment is crucial during this kind of energy. And then you add the moon being in Sagittarius.
Right. Which invites us to sort of lift our gaze, see the bigger picture.
Precisely. It encourages that perspective shift. To see these immediate changes, even the crumbling bits, as part of a much larger pattern, a grander design. It's not about ignoring what's difficult, but understanding its role in the bigger evolution. And this really sets us up, I think, for thinking about how we handle change collectively.
Yes, it really does, because seeing that bigger picture almost always involves other people, doesn't it? Which leads us perfectly into our deeper theme, community and collective strength. And building on that idea, the I Ching, specifically hexagram 45, seemed incredibly relevant to this theme of collective strength, how it actually forms.
Ah, hexagram 45, yes. So for anyone less familiar, the I Ching, or Book of Changes, is this ancient Chinese oracle. It uses these symbolic hexagrams to offer really profound insights into, well, life's changes. And hexagram 45 speaks directly to community alliance, social harmony. It really hammers home the power of unity,
Hmm.
of communal effort, focused gathering. The text suggests it's a time when movements, collaborations, new causes are actually forming, and it promises success through perseverance. It talks about creating something greater than the sum of its parts, but crucially, through preparedness within unity.
Preparedness within unity. I like that. And this idea that we're often drawn together by a common cause, shared values, or collective need, that feels very true right now. The I Ching suggests this calls on us to inspire or align or maybe even guide. And it asks that interesting question: is a leader needed? And are we meant to recognize the right leadership or maybe even step into it ourselves? What does that mean for you listening today?
Well, it's a call to engage, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
definitely not passive. It suggests, maybe it's time to actually call people together, whether that's for a meeting, a ritual, just a conversation, or some kind of shared project. So maybe you need to think about creating or joining a meaningful gathering. It's about actively participating.
Right, not just waiting around. And it's not just about showing up, is it? The wisdom urges us to step out of isolation and into meaningful community. So if you felt a bit lost or unsure about your direction, maybe the answer lies in seeking out those kindred spirits, finding groups where your presence, your contributions actually matter.
Exactly. And it emphasizes that true belonging is reciprocal. It's a two-way street, involves offering something of yourself.
Your skills, ideas, time, resources,
Yeah,
whatever it might be.
precisely. It's not just about taking, it's about bringing something to the circle. But here's where it gets really nuanced and I think quite practical.
Yeah.
Even in what seems like a peaceful gathering, the I Ching warns us to stay aware of potential discord or external disruptions.
So collective strength isn't naive. It requires vigilance.
Vigilance, wisdom, being ready to act decisively if needed. And maybe most importantly, it advises us to be selective about what cause or gathering we align with.
Hmm.
It warns against those superficial alliances, the ones based on convenience rather than deeply shared principles.
That makes sense. The integrity, the intention behind why people are coming together, that determines its real value, its success.
Yes, and it often requires a personal or collective offering to really solidify that bond, which actually brings us beautifully to the story you wanted to share.
It really does. The circle of the lake just perfectly illustrates these themes: unity, discernment, offering. So picture this quiet valley, mist rising off a wide, glassy lake. People from villages scattered around are starting to gather. You can feel the unrest in the air. There are whispers about changes coming, about old leaders maybe faltering, new voices rising up. Even the ground feels kind of restless, waiting.
That feeling of collective uncertainty, it really mirrors that void of course energy we talked about, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That sense of anticipation, of preparation before things shift.
Absolutely. Now, every year, when the first silver leaves fell, these people would gather by the lake. It was ancient tradition, older than memory, but this year, you could just feel it carried this extra weight. So they formed a circle near the water, and each person brought something small, something of themselves to place in the center. The smooth stone, maybe some herbs from a grandmother's garden, a bead, a feather, a little scrap of cloth. Just humble things, but full of meaning.
Those humble offerings. That's such a powerful echo of the I Ching's point about the personal or collective offering, isn't it? It shows that the value isn't in the flashiness, but in the sincerity, the shared commitment each person brings.
Exactly. And the circle wasn't seen as complete until the very last offering was placed there, a single bay leaf, green and fragrant, symbolizing wisdom sought in uncertain days. And standing at the edge of this circle was a woman named Ullenbrira. Not the eldest, not the most powerful by title, but she had this steady gaze. People felt drawn to her. The old ways talked about leaders not being chosen by decree, but by the call of the collective heart.
And there's the I Ching's question again. Is the leader needed? How do we recognize the right kind of leadership? Ellen Hyder sounds like that organic leader emerging naturally from the group's need.
She really does. She stepped forward, holding a piece of lapis lazuli, shimmering like the midnight sky, and she spoke, her voice soft but sure. She talked about remembering who they were, beyond just their village names or borders. She spoke about the Earth's hunger for unity, about the real dangers in division, and about their sacred responsibility, not just for themselves, but to each other.
Wow. And it's fascinating how the story connects her words to the environment itself. As she spoke, a wind stirred the lake's surface. The mist seemed to move with her voice. It says the people felt a presence ancient and unseen, moving among them, kind of binding their intentions like threads in a loom. It shows how powerful pure shared intention can be.
It really does. And then came these rituals of connection. They shared a drink brewed from linden and holy basil, passing this cup hand to hand. It was about softening wary hearts. Rose petals floated in the water, and each sip was like a silent promise, a vow to keep peace.
That physical act of sharing seals the intention.
Definitely. And then later, when night fell, they lit this big fire, and one by one, each person threw a small sprig of yarrow into the flames. And as they did, they named aloud what they would protect and what they would offer to the whole group.
Naming it aloud. That reinforces the I Ching's advice about being clear, being discerning, knowing what you stand for, what you're committing to. It separates real community from just being in the same place.
Absolutely. And the story says the impact was just profound. In that moment, no one was alone. The circle wasn't perfect, it acknowledges, nor without its tensions, but it held. The fire burned steadily, the lake reflecting its light. And the elders would later say that the spirit of the gathering had returned to the land that night. And its blessing was sealed by their sincerity, their courage, and just the simple truths and people coming together with clear hearts.
Such a powerful image.
Yeah. The lasting message wasn't that everything would be easy. The path ahead was still seen as thorny and uncertain, but they would face it differently now. Not as scattered voices, but as a chorus, each note distinct yet woven into a larger song.
Beautiful. So if we bring all these threads together, the astrology, the I Ching, this incredible story, it's striking how they all converge, isn't it? Even coming from different traditions, they point to this timeless power of conscious gathering, of unity, especially when things feel like they're shifting under our feet. That flat energy of the day, the call to integrate and prepare, the wisdom of hexagram 45 about harmony and offering, it all points towards intentional community as a way forward.
So thinking about all this, how does it land for you today? How might understanding today's flat energy maybe shift your approach, suggesting integration over pushing? And maybe more deeply, where can you find or perhaps even create your own circle, that space of meaningful community, remembering that true belonging involves giving as well as receiving? Could you identify or maybe even step into a role that helps unify efforts, like Alan Kara did in the story? And just to leave you with something to ponder, what single humble offering might you bring to the circle of your own life right now to strengthen a bond or to unify a purpose?